Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on into the video. In today's video, we have something a little bit different. This is actually going to be my first ever tier list. So in today's video, we're going to be ranking every single possible raid encounter that has ever existed in Destiny history, ladies and gentlemen. So in this specific tier list maker, Deepstone Crypt is not included. So at the end of the video, I'm gonna kind of like edit my way into the Deepstone Crypt rankings. But other than this, we're gonna be going in order every single raid from D1 Vaulted Glass all the way to Deepstone Crypt. So let's just jump into it. Alright, so here we have our every Destiny raid encounter ranked, updated, not updated yet because of Deepstone. But yeah, as you can see, updated encounters of Garden of Salvation and Joy. Hopefully soon we get more tier makers, including Deepstone Crypt, but for now, we're just gonna have to make do. It's either it's just Deepstone Crypt, or it's not. It doesn't include Garden. There's always some sort of exception or something that's left out of these tier makers, so we're just gonna have to make do. So I'll link this one in the description, and then yeah, let's just get started. Alright, so we're going to go in order for this one. So we're going to start with Vault of Glass. So let's try and find opening the Vault of Glass. So it's not really like neatly in order. It's kind of a little bit everywhere. Whatever, we're just going to have to make do with it. So let's start with the very first raid encounter ever. It's not even a no respawn zone. So we got opening the Vault of Glass. Nothing really special happens in this encounter. It's just kind of a teaching encounter, teaching you the plates. It gets a C tier. There's nothing really crazy about it. You're just opening a door. It's just a generic door opening encounter. So, and a lot of people are going to be like, oh, this is blasphemy. I have no nostalgic ties to Vault of Glass, so y'all can just eat a dick. So I didn't really look too much into is how in... Oh, it does include the oracles. Okay, I thought like Templar was just going to be all grouped into one encounter. So defending the... There it is. Defending the confluxes. So defending the confluxes, this is not that good. It's going to be somewhere down here. So defending the confluxes, you're literally just defending spires. This is literally just normal strike missions, even that, so it's gonna get an F tier. Nothing really happens. The most insane thing that happens is kind of like all the ads spawning in the middle. But once Tether was put into the game, that was just a cakewalk. So, and this will just kind of, my point will just be proven even more when Vault of Glass is brought back into the game in the coming year. So defending confluxes, it's an F tier. Like, I really don't get what this encounter is about other than just defending some towers, right? It's literally just defending the confluxes. There's nothing else about it. So next up, we got the oracles. Oracles are kind of the same thing, but at least something kind of happens. So the oracle is going to get a D tier because it's not as like boring as the first part, but it's not that exciting either. It's kind of just getting a build up. You're just shooting oracles, really. That's pretty much it. Nothing crazy happens, but it's also more engaging than just defending some towers. So oracles gets a D tier. And then we have the Templar. Templar is going to get a B, because it's the first raid boss, so you kind of get like those like, oh, it's the first time doing it, so whatever points. But it's also not really that crazy. I've only really done the Templar a couple times how it's supposed to be done. Most of the time I'm doing the challenge mode, because most of the time I played Vault of Glass was during Age of Triumph. So the Templar is really interesting. There's not really like a process. You literally just shoot his shield down, and that's pretty much it. There's a lot of strategies and a lot of places you can sit, but it's literally just kind of like, it's just one big bullet sponge, right? There's nothing really super crazy about it. There's no strategies. There's no encounter mechanics, really. It's just shooting the guy with your shield. And obviously, it's a first raid, whatever, but we are comparing this to all of this, right? So Templar at most gets a B tier. So alright, so next up we got the Gorgon's Labyrinth. This is a super cool part of the raid. It gets an S tier easily. Gorgon's Labyrinth is just... it is so full of intrigue and mystery, especially if you don't know what's coming. Like, when I first went into this the first time, this was crazy. Like, this was just, what the hell is happening? You're just trying to navigate this maze, and especially if you don't know your way or you don't have someone that knows the way, you're just kind of figuring it out as you go, right? And then there's all these secret chests around the area, and then you just feel like a sense of relief. This is one of the few encounters in Destiny where you really feel like a sense of relief, like, okay, we can relax now, we're done, alright? Like, when you're finishing it. Like, most raid encounters, you're just kind of like, okay, let's get to the next part, but Gorgon's Labyrinth, at least for me, has just been a lot of times like, okay, everybody breathe, let's go to Atheon, right? So, Gorgon's Labyrinth, easily S tier for me at least. Alright, so Gatekeeper encounter. This isn't super memorable, really. I honestly, it's been so long. This is the one encounter I couldn't tell you what happened or what happens in the encounter. It's just kind of like, it just seems like a typical phase 1 kind of neutered version of the boss encounter, so it kind of gets a D. Up next we got Atheon. So where is this boy? Right there. I passed over him like 4 times. So Atheon is the Gatekeeper encounter, but with actual steroids and an actual boss. I do actually enjoy this encounter quite a bit. I haven't done it too much, like I haven't done it like 100 times, but the times that I have done it, it's been pretty cool. So gets a B tier. It's not amazing or anything, but yeah, this is Vault of Glass. Alright, so coming up next we have Croats End. So Croats End, we start with the Traversing the Abyss. So Traversing the Abyss is actually pretty fun and chaotic. It's not as good as Gorgon's Lair, but it's still one of those encounters where you just kind of white knuckling the whole time. It's actually really, really fun, especially if you have a team that isn't really the most experienced. So Traversing the Abyss, super fun encounters, just super chill, but it's also super, like, it really gets the heart pumping, you know? And if you're down for good. Like, your teammates, they're not coming back to get you, you know? So the Abyss encounter, it's not really an encounter, you just kind of have to run for your fucking life, and then you sit on a plate, and then you form a bridge, and then you get to the other side. It's always super cool when you're like the last guy alive, and you're just holding on, praying that Ogre doesn't beam you from the other side of the planet. But when you make it across that bridge and you do see that white screen and you hear the like when you hear that, like you can be like, all right, we're good. Let's just get to the next part, you know? So yeah, Traversing the Abyss, pretty cool encounter. So next up we have Crossing the Bridge. If I can find that one, there it is. So the bridge encounter, it's okay. It's not amazing by any means. It's probably C tier. You just have a lot of struggles. Like, there's a lot of things that can, like, just one little fuck up and everything just falls apart. Like, the death totems, the annihilator totems are super, super strict sometimes. And, like, you'll have that sword, you'll be going across the bridge, and you'll just die for no reason. I can mostly attribute my problems with glitches, I think. Like, again, I haven't played Croats. I think Croats End is my least played raid of all time. I've done every other raid at least twice more than I've done Croats End. So, so Croats End, The bridge encounter, it's pretty fun. It's pretty cool if you can get it like within your first few tries. But I've just had so many times just sitting on this encounter forever because you always have that one motherfucker that always panics or always gets one shot or something glitches out. So it's I feel like if there were no problems at all, it'd be B. But just because I've had so many negative experiences on this encounter, it gets a C easily. So next, is the hallway encounter on this, or is that not really an encounter? I wouldn't really consider it an encounter, but we got Ear-Ute. Ear-Ute is just a shortened version. It's just kind of like I really like the idea of it just being a blitz, but it's also, there's not really much to it. You're just killing stuff pretty quickly, and then it's over in like 2 seconds. So you don't really have, again, it's kind of like the Gatekeeper encounter. It's fairly quick, and if you're not really like tuned in, you're not really sure what's going on, right? So Ear-Ute gets a C tier. It's okay. It's not the best or anything. So Crota gets a B tier. It's okay. It's a pretty good encounter. I'll tell you this: if you're actually the sword guy, it would probably be A. But because there's 5 other people that are just kind of doing nothing, there's a lot of downtime in the Crota fight. There's just so much downtime. You're a lot of waiting. I feel like if it was more involved, easily A tier. But Crota as a whole, like Croats End, it's an okay raid. It's just kind of like, you know, I mean, and it can very easily be made or broken by a good sword person. So if the person is good with the sword and they know how to do it, then it's pretty good. But again, just like the bridge encounter, I just had a lot of negative experiences in this with this fight as well. So Crota gets a B tier. Alright, so coming up next, we got King's Fall. King's Fall, for the longest time, was actually my favorite raid. And this is when I really started getting into Destiny, so King's Fall was like the raid when I started really getting into the game. So I wasn't really like super into the game when these raids were out, but when King came out, I was super into the game, and yeah. Alright, so opening the portal. Again, not much happens, but it's also, I also like it because pretty much everyone has something to do. Everyone is either shooting a door or running a ball or killing ads, or something's always happening, and there's always like a clear progress bar. And I also like the fact that you can be punished, so you can also be set back, but you're not going to be wiped. So I really like that concept. We're not completely wiped, so we have to completely start over, but you can also be set back a few steps. So I really like a lot of concepts they played with this encounter. It's also short and sweet, and if you got a good runner and you got a good door helper on your wing, it can be just a breeze. So if everyone's on the same page, this encounter goes by super quick, and it's super good just to be like, all right, good job, all right. It's also, I also like it because you're not really jacking off the whole time. Like, you're not just kind of waiting for stuff to happen like most door encounters. You're actually kind of involved in it, and you're not just waiting for stuff to happen, you know? So that is why opening the portal gets a B tier. Is powering the glyphs the totems encounter? I think it is. It looks... Yeah, that's the War Priest door. Yeah. Okay. So powering the glyphs, this is kind of the exact opposite of what I like about the opening the portal. This is just such a boring encounter. The only things you have to worry about are Boomer Knights and the wizards every now and then. But this is such a boring encounter, and if you're wiping on this, if you're the reason the team is wiping, that's just sad. Like, this is such an easy encounter. In fact, I'm gonna put it at F tier because it's just that boring and easy. And I wouldn't mind it as much, but it's just so fucking long. You just want to get onto War Priest. Like, you had this super cool opening the portal encounter, and then you have this super cool spaceship ride, like, across this huge chasm. But at the same time, you're like, okay, this is cool, but it's also kind of taking a while, so can we just get on with the raid? And then you kind of remember, it's like, oh yeah, we gotta do totems. It's also super easy for everything to fall apart. Like, if one link in the chain breaks, everything just falls apart and you wipe, and then you're just like, why the fuck are we wiping on totems? It's just such, like, a sad feeling, really. So, totems is an F tier. Alright, so next up we got War Priest. War Priest is... where is it? So, War Priest... I don't mind War Priest. It's also just kind of a middle of the road. It's kind of C tier. It's a cool starting boss fight. Like, it's not super complicated. It's not super hard. And the mechanics are pretty straightforward. But it's also at the same time like it's also like a good getting used to the buffs and the auras and all that. So the War Priest, pretty good encounter. I really enjoy it. But at the same time, it's not really that exciting. Like, most of it really relies on if your aura holder is stupid or not. So, War Priest, it's a C tier. It's middle of the road. It's got a lot going for it, but it's also, like, it never really does anything with it, like most of these encounters. So, that's why it gets C tier. So, Golgoroth, I really like this encounter. It's not S tier. It's A tier. Now, the reason I put it here is because Golgoroth, there's so many ways to do this encounter. It's really, like, really up to you. You can either have 4 people down in the pit the whole time, and you have two grabbers, or I don't know what the actual term for it is, but like 2 attention grabbers, or you could have 1 attention grabber the whole way down, and you can have 5 people down and getting a little bit more DPS. So, Golgoroth, it's really creative how you can do it. I really like the intended way that I think it's supposed to be done, but again, we're not entirely sure. Like, you can just do it however you want. That's why Golgoroth is so good. But again, it's also, the reason why it's not S tier is because it's really not that exciting either. Like, it's just a ogre, and it's just in a small blue room. So there's nothing super crazy about it. It's just really straightforward. The layout and mechanics are super straightforward, but what you can do with those mechanics is what makes it A tier. If it was a really straightforward boss and there was only one way to do it, it'd be B tier. And if it wasn't just an ogre in a blue room, it would be S tier. So Golgoroth gets A. A for A. We're on Golgoroth. I also really like the Golgoroth Labyrinth before. It's such a cool, like, area. Like, in my opinion, I know it's just, there's only one correct way forward, but my first time going through there, finding my way through there was super cool. I just have a really good memory of that. So next up, we got the Daughters of Oryx. I'm gonna be honest, this is a B tier. So the problem with the Daughters is that you're just kind of doing the same thing twice in a row. Obviously, Daughters, it's plural. And there's really only one, like, actual way to do this, and it's just kind of like, you gotta, like, you're not really gonna wipe, per se, if you don't kill a daughter in time, but you might as well, because it's such a pain in the ass. And don't even get me started, I still remember the one time we did this raid, and we were taking a new guy through, and he always got the torn between dimensions. He was always torn between dimensions. It was so goddamn annoying. And I think the fact, this is a pretty good intro to Oryx encounter, but again, it's just kind of like, okay, we gotta kill these bosses. I do like the fact that this is really the only boss fight where Touch of Malice really shines. So I guess there's the one thing going for it. But it's also not terrible either. Like, everyone's actually kind of doing something. So, yeah, Daughters gets a B. And finally, this is controversial even in my head. Where is he? So, Oryx, I go back and forth a lot with this encounter. This is This is a really cool spectacle of an encounter, and all signs point to the fact that this should be an A or an S tier encounter, right? Because everyone's doing something, there's always something to do, everyone's moving, everyone's involved, everyone's got a role. But the problem is, this spawned a phenomenon in the raid design, I guess, a major issue I have with raid design is the Oryx encounter. It's every time from here on out, from Taken King on out, there has always been an issue in raiding called the Oryx encounter, and it doesn't just have to be literally this encounter of Oryx. It can be any encounter where no matter how good your team is, no matter how skilled or how well they know the encounter, you cannot do this any faster than what's built or what's expected of you. You're always going to have to force cycle this boss. You're always going to have to do the shadow thing. You're always going to have to detonate the bombs. You're always going to have to shoot the light ogres, the light eater ogres. You're always going to have to shoot. You're always going to have to do the same thing. It's the same thing 4 times in a row. Now what you're actually doing is super good, and I enjoy it personally, but I can imagine if some people that have done this raid 100 times are really sick of it. So Oryx gets an overall a B. It is super good. It is a super good encounter. I really enjoy what you're doing in it, but the fact that it spawned the Oryx problem again, no matter how good you are, no matter how much DPS you output, you're always taking the same time to complete this encounter. So that's why Oryx overall gets a B tier. If it literally did not have that problem, it would be A or S, and that's just like that's gotta be the biggest cry and shame of them all. So Oryx overall B tier. All right, next up we got Wrath of the Machine, my favorite raid of all time. And I'm about to explain why, because every single encounter in here kicks ass. So, Vossic first encounter. Typical door opening encounter, right? Typical. It is very typical, but it also includes a mini boss fight. It is a prelude to the first boss encounter. So I really like it. And the fact that you're running around, the fact that you're running around kind of just collecting sparks, and it's all sort of chaos, and it's not a darkness zone, so you can just kind of mess around and do whatever you want. It's a great door opening encounter, but again, it's a door opening encounter. So overall, I'm gonna have to put this in B tier. It is a very high B tier just because I really love throwing the bombs at the boss, and it's just, you're not really opening a door, you're more making this guy retreat, and you're like, yeah, we kicked his ass. Now let's go hunt him down. So, Vossic door opening encounter, A tier, if it was not a door opening encounter. But, speaking of Vossic being A tier, here he is, boys. This is Vossic, the A tier boss. So, why I love Vossic so much is because there is, again, a lot of strategy. You can get really, the skill ceiling with this boss fight is really, really high. So always something that your team is doing. So you're focusing on ads for a little bit. There's always that blitz of ads, and then you gotta throw the bombs, and then you have to shoot the screen, and then you gotta do DPS, and then you gotta go through a door. So this boss fight is always, the process of what you're doing is pretty lengthy, but it doesn't feel like that because you're always moving, you're always doing something, you're always gotta think, okay, next we're doing this, then we're doing this, then we're doing this, and everyone's got to get in the middle of DPS, and then we all got to agree on a door to go to. So it's super good. I really enjoy Vossic. I really enjoy where this boss takes place. I really like the arena as well. I mean, just look at this. Look at this screenshot. What's not to love, right? So Vossic the Archpriest, or however you say that, Archpriest, Archpriest, I'm going to say. So yeah, that's why he gets that's why it's an A tier boss. It's super fun. and you're always doing something. I always love encounters where you're always doing something. There's not really a lot of downtime. So yeah, Vosik is A tier. So next up, oh baby, the Siege Engine. Do I need to say more? Do I need to say more? Siege Engine. Look at this screenshot. You're on top of the wall. You're on top of the fucking wall. And you got this giant robot just clamoring down on you. Again, always something to do. Everyone's either helping people carry the parts or carrying the parts themselves. And if you're on hard mode, you got the tank for no fucking reason, and you gotta shoot those mines. And there's always there's two paths you can take. One's it's always risk versus reward. You got more time, and the one path is slower but safer, and the one path is more dangerous but faster. So it's kind of that risk versus reward path. And then come on, when you get to the end of the encounter, and you fix the siege engine. You are just cruising on top of that thing. You are having the time of your life. And then you get to the top and then you're like, oh shit. And then you fall down to the bottom. And it's just it's such a roller coaster of an encounter. And I would love to see this encounter on next gen. Because if you guys know, this encounter caused so many frame rate issues. It was crazy. So Siege Engine, just obvious S tier encounter, and I love this encounter. It is so cool. Next up, Axis Phase 1. Axis Phase 1, again, it's a Phase 1 encounter, but it's also a really good Phase 1 encounter. So, it's really getting you used to the mechanics. What you're actually doing is super good. Yeah, there's not really a lot to say. Again, this is a Phase 1, so I'm gonna have to put it at B tier. It's again, just like the Vosik first encounter, it's a super high B tier, but it is a Phase 1 of a boss. Which, by the way, Axis Archon Prime, easy S tier as well. Such a great encounter. Everyone's doing something. Everyone's got a role, and there's a lot of strategies to this. This introduced Dark Drinker being the maximum DPS. You can and there's just always, it's always super chaotic because it's like, okay, I'm charged right, I'm charged middle. Who's charged left? Someone get him. He's on the left side. Someone get him, and then y'all wipe, and it's just fuck. But when you finally, the music as well just completely throws this encounter over the top. This has to be one of my favorite encounters of all time. Easy S tier. And if you disagree, you haven't played the encounter. So yeah, Axis, I really hope I get to experience this encounter or just this raid in general again. And then this is why I love Wrath of the Machine. Because you got two easy S tier encounters, two pretty good encounters, and then you have a one great boss fight. So it's all just super good. And yeah, Wrath of the Machine. What else is there to say? All right, so finally we are moving on to Destiny 2. So obviously we got the Leviathan. We're going to start with week 1 rotation, which is Baths, Dogs, Gauntlet, Callus. So let's start with Baths. Oh, the Baths encounter. It looks so cool, but it's just so bad. It's just, it is just the Totems encounter. It's even easier because you can easily fuck up and just, it won't even matter. I think Baths is just the lowest of the low in terms of raid encounters, and then at this, I know year 1, when the game first came out, the jars were kind of a thing, and then you might have had to multi-cycle, but just in this day and age in Destiny, this encounter is just a snooze fest atrocity of existence. So yeah, Baths encounter, it is just easy F tier. Alright, so coming up next, we got the Dogs encounter. So this is actually a pretty cool encounter. I do like the stealth aspect. So it's going to be B tier. It is a pretty cool encounter. I like the stealth aspect, and I like how you have the 2 watchers or the 2 scouts, and then everyone's got a role. Especially on prestige mode when there's 8 dogs, it's kind of really intense because you're trying to really avoid these dogs, especially when we're in the middle, those little bitches. And yeah, again, in year 1, this is actually pretty difficult, but in this day and age, with all these super high DPS weapons, it's just a walk in the park. Like, you can literally get 12 stacks and you can just wipe with any fucking weapon of your choice, especially with Falling Guillotine. Alright, so coming up next, we got the Gauntlet encounter. Oryx encounter, Oryx encounter, Oryx encounter, Oryx encounter. So yeah, this is our first example of the Oryx encounter problem. The Gauntlet is pretty cool if you are a runner, but it is super fucking boring if you are a shooter. So Gauntlet, I like the concept, I like the aspect of the teamwork, but there's nothing to this encounter. It is just a tragedy. So next up we got Callus. Now this is gonna be very kind of like, what the fuck? So what really puts Callus up here is the hard mode version. I tried to factor in the different experiences for all the bosses. The hard mode version of Callus really topples it over the edge for me because it was like really high B tier, but when you factor in hard mode, it is a tier boss fight. So the difference between hard mode isn't really that crazy, but I just feel like it really adds a challenge to the encounter. It's not like a crazy challenge, but like if you understand it, you got teammates that understand it, it just works. It's like a nice, it's like a bunch of moving parts. Like if you ever see those like satisfying animation compilations, like where like, I don't even know, it's super satisfying if everyone's got their rules down. If you're in the throne room, I can understand if it's a little boring, but I feel like once all the team comes together and all the cogs come in place, it is a super good encounter. Everyone's got their part to play, and then when it all meshes together into a great DPS phase, that is where Callus shines. Alright, so next up, Eater of Worlds. Escape the Reactor is the worst encounter in Destiny history. It is somehow worse than the Royal Bass. How do you do that? How'd you do that? I don't know. I think this is going to be the last F tier encounter. I think, unless there's one of these that really pissed me off. But as far as I can see, I'm good. So, Argos Phase 1. It's a pretty cool thing. It's a C tier, mostly because if you're a runner, it's pretty cool, but if you're a defender, it's kind of just, what am I doing again? And then the same goes for Argos Phase 2, which is, where is he? There he is. Argos is a A tier because I just really enjoy the environment. Argos is probably like one of the coolest just encounter designs ever. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy how you can't one phase it. Really, like, it's super hard to one phase this guy. Like as of Season of Arrivals, but but yeah, Argos, super cool encounter. Kind of makes it. It's really the only reason to do Eater Worlds really is to do this encounter. Everything else is just kind of poo. But yeah, Argos, super cool encounter. I really enjoy it personally. I just really like the atmosphere and like there's a lot of tricks and tips and whatnots that you can do to this boss that really make it just that much more enjoyable. So, alright, so next up we have the Spire of Stars. So this encounter, the ball toss, is actually pretty cool. I really enjoy it. I think it's a lot of B tiers in this, and this isn't a bad thing. The fact that there's a lot of B tiers means that a lot of the encounters are really good. So again, the ball toss, this is probably one of the best mechanic teaching introduction encounters in terms of showing you what the raid's going to be about. So it involves the ball toss, and pretty much everyone's doing something. So you're either on the tower or you're defending. And defending, it's not like you're just defending and you're shooting a couple ads every now and then. Like, there's a lot of ads in that encounter to keep you busy. So yeah, it's a really good game of hot potato. I really enjoy Spire of Stars as a whole. So yeah, that gets a B tier. So next up we got Valkor Phase 1, if that's on. Oh, the jumping puzzle's on here. Okay. Okay, I didn't expect that. So, oh yeah, I guess it does. So I'm going to give it a D tier, just because the amount of times it's glitched out on me. Again, it is just a jumping puzzle, so there's nothing too crazy about it. And the amount of times it's glitched out on me as well. But I do like the setting, I do like the scale and what you're doing in this jumping puzzle. But again, lots of glitches that just kind of make it not the best, you know? So, alright, so Valkor Phase 1. So this is going to be a C tier encounter. I actually don't like this encounter as much as the ball toss, mainly because it's just kind of unnecessary. Like, it kind of like, if you're just like, oh, this is just part of the boss fight. Like, this is just, it's literally just like you have like the beginning section of the mechanics of the boss fight and the end section of the mechanics of the boss fight. You already just slide to Phase 1 in the middle. Like, this is just a bulk of what you're doing for the boss fight, so it's kind of redundant when you find out you're just doing this again. But again, I really enjoy I really enjoy going into space. I really like the callouts. There's a lot of like moving around and everyone has to be on their game, but unfortunately it's just kind of redundant. So, and then if you guys have noticed my pattern so far, for the most part, Valkor, can you guess, is going to get an A tier. So Valkor, I really enjoy this boss fight, especially when I played it. When you play this boss fight, there is nothing like this. The challenge that this boss fight gives you, this is pre-Whisper of the Worm, before that weapon even came out. Pre-Whisper of the Worm, mind you. This is pre-Well of Radiance, pre-Titan Bubble actually being useful, pre all of that. The weirdest shit would come out. So this would be, it would be like 5 Arc Strider staffs going up against this guy, and that would kind of one face. I remember when Warcliffe Coil was, well, Warcliffe Coil still is like one of the best weapons for this guy, but when you finally found out that Warcliffe Coil actually had a use in PvE, it was kind of like, wow, okay. So yeah, just the amount of weird stuff you could do with this encounter if you were good enough to do it. Now, this encounter does have a lot of challenge for some reason. A lot of people struggle with this because they suck. But yeah, the Valkor, super good boss fight. The Leviathan boss fights are all super good. It's just a shame that the rest of the raids can't, the rest of like the raid encounters can't live up to it. So yeah, Valkor is a tier. Alright, so next up we have Last Wish. Another super awesome raid that I really enjoy. So we're going to start with Callie, wherever that is. There it is. So Callie's going to get a C tier. There's not much to this encounter. It is a super simple encounter in the grand scheme of this raid. But again, it's just like an introduction encounter. It's not a door opening encounter, even though I didn't even think about that. Door is literally open, and that's how you don't wipe. So I guess it is a door opening encounter now that I think about it. But yeah, it's a super simple encounter. Nothing crazy happens again. It's just super straightforward. It's just average. There's nothing crazy about it. It's just straightforward. It's not terrible. It's not like insane. So yeah, Callie gets a C tier. Now, Shurochi, oh boy, Shurochi is S tier. So Shurochi, I love this encounter so much because you're constantly moving. It is non-stop action. You are either clearing ads, shooting each other with crystals, damaging the boss, or doing the puzzle. It is non-stop. all the way until the end. And again, another encounter like Gorgon's Labyrinth, where you can actually take a breath and like it's kind of like you're white knuckling all the way until the end. So yeah, super good encounter. If everyone, again, just everything's flowing together and no one's like lagging behind, such a good encounter. I really love Surochi. Always something to do. Everyone's doing something except for like maybe one guy, and that's the greatest thing about it, because everyone can be doing something, and if you're teaching someone the raid, they can just kind of tag along for the ride, and as long as they don't suck at that jumping part in between phase 3 and 5, then it's pretty good. Alright, so next up we have Morgith. Morgith is like the stain on Last Wish's reputation. You got Callie, it's a pretty good encounter. You got Shurchi, a great encounter. You got Vault, a super cool encounter. And you got Riven and the Heart Run. All great encounters. But you got Morgith just kind of sitting here, and it's just like, why? Like, you know, why? Like, I get this is kind of like a day 1 damage check, but other than that, this is just really pointless. It's just a big fat ogre that's just kind of sitting here, and you just kind of want to get it over with. So it's a D tier, not awful. It's just kind of like Last Wish wouldn't really be any worse without Morgith. It might even actually be better. So next up we have the Vault. Awesome encounter, B tier encounter. It is such a good encounter. I really like it. It's like a high B tier. Like, I might even put it at A tier, maybe. I don't know. So I think I'm gonna keep it at B. Reason is because you're just kind of doing the same thing 3 times. But it also doesn't have that Oryx problem. It can, but if you know your way around and you know the tricks with the tractor cannon, then yeah, you can make this encounter super fast. I really enjoy the fact that this was like a holding break, like a giant wall for the day 1 raiders. The puzzle, figuring out the puzzle, like if you don't know the answer to the puzzle, this has got to be like one of the most confusing things ever. I do not envy, or what's the right term? I envy those that actually buckled down and figured it out, right? So the Vault, but once you know the pattern, once you know the puzzle solution, super easy, super fun encounter, especially if you're a runner. You're doing a lot, but I can understand. Again, another reason I'm not putting it A tier. If you are not a runner, it can be kind of boring. But again, the actual like mechanics and how the puzzle works more than makes up for it. So next up, now you might be sitting here wondering, why is all 6 players going into a dark corner sorting the arm of a dragon an S tier? And it's not. If that's the legit way to do Riven, all the way down here at the bottom. But if you do Riven the legit way, without any cheeses, this has got to be hands down the best encounter in Destiny 2. Only beaten by its cousin in Siva Red. Riven, I'm not even going to explain it. It's just that good. It's kind of like an elitist club, like, oh, you haven't done Riven legit, pathetic, and you're a Riven's Bane too. But yeah, Riven, you haven't done Riven legit, do it now. Queen's Walk B tier, because it is just super straightforward all the way until the end. At least everyone has to do something, but it's also just super straightforward. If everyone wasn't involved, like you could just have people just kind of straggling around, C tier, but because everyone has to at least do something in the encounter, it's B tier. It's super low B tier in my opinion. But yeah, Queen's Walk, super straightforward, nothing offensive about it. And that's it for Last Wish. Again, a super good raid. Like, these 2 encounters just lift this raid to godlike proportions. So next up, we have Scourge of the Past. Scourge of the Past, we got the Berserker encounter. Again, it's going to be a C tier. It's a door-opening encounter, technically. But again, everyone's involved doing something, but at the same time, you're just kind of moving around this giant map. I do like the fact that there is a giant map, but again, there's nothing super... Once you get past the novelty of being on your Sparrow, moving around a lot, and all this verticality, it's just super straightforward. Like, this encounter could be, like, in a small room, and it wouldn't really change. I also feel like this does stretch out a little long because sometimes you can be all the way on 4 and you'll get called out to 2 and you're going to have to go all the way across the map and it's super annoying. You just kind of got to wait for your turn on when to do stuff. So yeah, Berserker, C tier. Alright, so Escaping the Servitor. Super fun blitz of just high octane action. Another encounter where you can kind of just take a breather after you finish it. You're just kind of relieved that it's over. But it's also super fun because it's kind of like an Indiana Jones. I really like the inspiration of like the Indiana Jones boulder. It kind of feels like that, except it's a fireball on sparrows. So yeah, the Sparrow encounter in Scourge, especially if you hit all the buttons and you get the long track, super good. Insurrection Prime Phase 1 D tier. If you are on top team, you are literally falling asleep. You literally have to have your teammates at the bottom say kill, like scream kill server because you are listening to a lullaby at this point. So Insurrection Phase 1, super boring. Even if you're on the bottom team, you're just kind of going in a circle until you punch your symbol, so that's pretty much it. So that gets a D tier. Then Insurrection Prime, the actual boss fight, is an A tier. I really enjoy Insurrection Prime. I really enjoy this boss, especially with all the little nuances of each mechanic, like the CAP, damage buffs, and all that. It's another encounter where if all the puzzle pieces flow together well, it can go super smoothly and it's super fun. So yeah, not much to say about it. It's just a really good encounter. And now we're moving on to Crown of Sorrow, and I did lie. I did say there would be no more F tier encounters, but Hive Ritual has got to be the second worst encounter in the game. So I don't even need to explain it. If you have seen footage of it, it is awful. Crown of Sorrow jumping puzzle. It's a jumping puzzle. You're just shooting crystals. Nothing really exciting. D tier. Again, another jumping puzzle. I wouldn't even consider it an encounter, but what are you going to do? So Galron's Deception. So Galron's Deception is a C tier just because, so Galron's Deception, it has like this perfect blend. Like if you're like second to receive the buff, like if you're not starting with the buff and you're also not starting with the guy, it's really good. But there's also a 2 in 3 chance that you can get kind of a poo-poo encounter. You can either just be bored out of your mind killing ads, just avoiding the dude, or you start with the buff and you have to kind of scramble to get everything in order. So Galron's Deception, especially with the Anarchy cheese, it kind of just, like, thank God the Anarchy cheese. If that wasn't there and you couldn't one-phase this, then it would just drag on forever. So Galron, the Shadow Bearer, or the Sorrow Bearer, or whatever, it's a B tier at most. It's just a really busy encounter. It's just a lot of busy work that you always have to be like, oh, we have to shoot the crystals. Yo, we gotta shoot the crystals now. We gotta shoot them. And then, oh, we gotta shoot the hand. And then you gotta punch. You gotta do it now. Like, there's some times where it really flows together well and it really makes a nice boss fight. But then there's other times where, like, even if you make the slightest error, there's like the slightest missed time, it just turns to shit. So yep, Galron, bravo tier. Alright, so we're finally getting to Garden of Salvation. So we got the Consecrated Mind. I really like the encounter. I really like, again, it's kind of like a neutered Shirochi where you're chasing this boss through the encounter, and everyone's kind of like, you got these two teams and they're moving, like there's a lot of people moving, and then you got to do the team moves and they do their part, and then the other team moves and they do their part, and it's all just kind of, it's kind of like a leapfrog. I really like the idea of a leapfrog encounter. So yeah, this is a D tier. This is another Oryx problem, or another Oryx encounter. You're just kind of waiting for stuff to happen. You just kill your ads and then you just fall asleep. I just hate how it makes me yawn. But yeah, this encounter, it's not really that good. Not really much else to say. You're just kind of waiting around. And then, so next up we have Consecrated Mind. It's a pretty good boss fight. I'd say it's a B tier boss fight. Again, it's just kind of like, what the fuck was the point of this when this takes place in the same area? But yeah, I do like how there's the Gambit team. Gambit team's kind of doing their own thing, and then the Eyes team is kind of doing their own thing. But the thing is that this encounter, it really feels like, it just feels like two separate encounters that are just taking place in the same spot. And then you all kind of meet up and damage the boss. So like, you got Gambit team, they're just trying to do Gambit as fast as possible, and then the Eyes team is just trying to stall the boss as much as possible. So yeah, that's like really my main problem with this boss fight, is that it really feels disconnected until you're all at the end DPSing. So Consecrated Mind, it's pretty good, but nothing amazing. Sanctified Mind as well. This boss fight just drags on forever. This boss fight, it's just such a pain. If you didn't have to have two teams going in on each side, like if you only had one team going on blue and then one team going on red, and then they come back and then they fill up their banks, it would be a lot better. But the fact that you can only carry 10 motes at a time, if you could carry as many motes as you wanted, I feel like this encounter would be a lot better, because everyone could get 15 or 30 or however much they want to make the bank. I do like the build mechanic, and I do like the tether mechanic throughout the whole raid, but again, it's just kind of like, it just drags on, especially if you're doing this for multiple phases. It's like, all right, can we hurry this up or something? Like, Jesus. So yeah, Sanctified Mind, I really like the boss fight. Like, I really like what you're doing, but just the fact that it just repeats itself so much, it knocks it down a few marks, you know. So yeah, that is it for what's available here. And Deepstone Crypt did come out, and I did play it quite a few times. So I feel like now I can finally put my rank on where I put each encounter. So Crypt security is a C tier. It's a very high C tier. The problem is that there's really only 2 or 3 people actually doing stuff. Everyone else is just kind of killing ads, waiting for scanner and operator to do their thing. So that's kind of the main problem with this. If you're a scanner or operator, this is a pretty cool encounter. I like how fast you can make it. You just do it in like a second. You can just do it super duper fast. But again, if you are just if you're just one of the ad killers, it does get dragged down a little bit. So if everyone had to do something in Crypt security, it'd be high B tier, but it is high C tier because only 2 people are doing stuff and the other people are just kind of doing whatever. Atrax. Atrax is a high A tier. It is super high. I kind of want to get an S tier, actually. I just really like the environment and what you're doing in this encounter. It reminds me a lot of Shuro Chi in a lot of ways. And yeah, I really like the fact that you can go to space. I really like the different environments. And there's not really a lot of downtime. You're just kind of damaging the boss. All right, upper team damage the boss, lower team damage the boss. It's just a lot of stuff. So I haven't really had a concrete position on it. So it'd either be like super high A tier or S tier. So I haven't really made up my mind on it yet. I do have to play it a few more times. I've only done the raid 7 times. So So yeah, I do have to get more experience with Atrax before I can really solidify. I do really enjoy the encounter, but I feel like in the longevity of the encounter might wear off. I'm not entirely sure. So Atrax is up here somewhere. All right, so next up we have the Descent, or the Taniks Phase 1, I guess you can call it. This is a B tier. This is kind of an Oryx encounter, but there's a lot happening in this encounter where you really don't notice it. So everyone's got something to do. Again, there's like that one person that just kills ads and doesn't really do anything. But I do like the fact that operator or like the augments can be disabled. So you have to have another person kind of pick up where they left off in that role. But I do think the environment and the context of what's happening in that encounter does make up for the fact that it is just kind of like an Oryx encounter. But I also do love the... I am a sucker for the music in that encounter. So, and finally, Taniks, the Abomination, A tier. It is an A tier boss fight. It is super good. Everyone's got their roles to do. And I always like that part where you're shooting the mines. Everyone's got something to do. You're either carrying a mine, or help carrying a mine, or you're suppressing or being operator there. Pretty good encounter. I also like the fact that Bungie just kind of made a giant fuck you ring. It's like, no, you can get nowhere near this boss, but you also can't be super far away from this boss. So you have to be in this very specific distance away from the boss right here, and the boss moves around a lot. So it's just, I really like how Bungie's just kind of got fed up with every boss being cheesed with swords or whisper or whatever. So they just kind of said, nope, you have to be here if you want to damage the boss. And I just really enjoy Taniks. It's not as good as Atrax encounter, but it is also a pretty good encounter in general. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for my Destiny tier ranking encounter. So if you guys want to check it out, I'll put this link in the description, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.